What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise Postgame show. The Blazers get shellacked tonight. That's a new word to describe things. Yeah, man, this was not a good performance from Portland whatsoever. The defense was abysmal, giving up 46 in the first quarter, 79 points in the first half. I don't care who you're going against, and I don't care who's injured on your team. There is no excuse for giving up 79 points. And the Blazers just continue to play some of the worst defense in the league. But you do have a bright spot tonight with Nassir Little dropping 30 points. We'll touch on him. And this is probably going to be a shorter stream. And I don't know. Honestly, I don't even really want to dive in quite as deep as we normally do on this post-game show, because it's basically just all the stuff we talk about, and we could rant for 2 hours on this. But I mean, I saw this coming just with the flaws that this team has displayed over the past, over this entire season, basically. And then now we're facing a legitimate team instead of a lottery team. It gets exposed even worse. So yeah, we'll try and engage a little bit more with chat, and that is the plan. But Milwaukee wins by a score of 134-106, led by Drew Holiday, who had 22 points. Bobby Portis had 21 off the bench. Giannis only played 26 minutes and had 18.6 assists. Chris Middleton had 17 points for the Bucks, who hit 21 threes. They were 21 for 42, shot 50%. The Blazers were 38% from the field, 36% from the three-point line. This was just a two-sided blowout, basically. Milwaukee dominated Portland on both ends of the court. Their largest lead was, let me pull this up here, their largest lead was 39. It looked like the Blazers might lose at 41 point, but they got it back within 30, so props for that, I guess. Yeah, man. Eric, I don't know. What I would ask you, what are your feelings on this game, but I already know, so just go ahead and say what you want to say. I mean, yeah, it was entertaining watching him tonight for sure. And we will touch on him and compare him to somebody else on this team. Oh, you're muted, my bad. I forgot to unmute. Go. All right. Welcome, Eric.
The only thing I said was Nassir Little. That's all I said. So.
He said Nas. I don't know. He was speechless, so it's not like it even made a difference.
But no, we started off the game on fire, shooting 60% or above from the 3-point line, and we were still down 9 points. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
But if you would have told me in the first 7 or 8 minutes of this game we'd hit 6 threes on only 10 attempts, and we're shooting almost 60% overall from the field. On top of that, there should be no way your defense is so bad that you are losing at that point. But Portland just did not have the talent to match the Bucks, nor did they have the effort, other than a few players, or the defensive scheme to be able to ever stop a nice offense like that. So there's no chance a Terry Stotts coach team could ever stop an offense that is that sharp and moves the ball and hits that many or that high a percentage of a shot. It's just not possible for Stotts to game plan enough to cover that. So yeah, I mean they have the better team, so it's not surprising we got blown out. It's just sucks that we just continue to give up open shots in the way we defend and the way we go about just seemingly giving up and not really believing that we can win a game like that. As soon as they got up, it was obvious on all the players' faces that we weren't going to come back in this game.
Yeah. Just Portlandia, stop trying to say you expect wins because you expect us to go 3-0 in the 3 games before this. We went 1-2. So quit jinxing the team. I think we would all appreciate that. Shout out Mike B, $5 donation. He says, lack of rebounding and opponent offensive efficiency is beyond frustrating to watch. At this point, I feel like a lot of players have quit on Stotts, and I don't know, man. This team looked like they were just going through the motions. Like, the lack of effort was really the main thing I was disappointed with tonight. You know, it's like they could come out and try and do all the right things and still lose just because Milwaukee is the more talented team on the court tonight. But Milwaukee being more talented doesn't excuse a lack of effort, and just... Dude, like, the defensive effort was just abysmal today. It was inexcusable. I haven't, Stotts will have his post-game press conference. If Stotts isn't saying that the defensive effort was bad today or that it was a problem, then I'm going to have a problem with Stotts because this was maybe the worst defensive effort they've given all season long. All season long, right? And you have people saying, oh, personnel, blah, blah, blah. Personnel does not determine your effort, man. It absolutely does not. Nassir Little was trying. Other than that, I mean, just everybody's just sleepwalking defensively, and it didn't seem like it really pissed Stotts off all that much. You know, he just kind of seemed lackadaisical there on the sideline, and it's just like, I don't know, man. Could we get rest instead and just forfeit the game if we're not going to try? Yeah, it's just, it's frustrating.
So I don't know who asked the question or how it's phrased or whatever, but people are saying in chat that Stotts was specifically asked what he does to hold his players accountable on that in the press conference. So that'll be something we have to listen to in a little bit.
Yeah, let me know when it drops. I will cut straight over to it. But let's talk Nassir Little, right? Let's talk about something positive. Nassir Little, 30 points. Let me pull up the graphic. I made one graphic. This is the only other graphic that we're going to have tonight. I didn't feel like making the rest. There really was no point to, but...
Nas deserves it.
But since I could put this stat line on a Nas graphic, I wanted to actually do it. He sets a career high with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 11 for 18 from the field, 5 for 7 from the three-point line. His shot looks great. His form looks great. Yeah, and he was... a problem on the offensive glass for Milwaukee. You know, the numbers don't really reflect that, but it seems like he was close to getting multiple offensive rebounds. He was always in the mix for loose balls. You love to see that, especially on a night where the rest of the team isn't doing any of that, you know? I'm high on Nas, man. I like Nas. He played 30 minutes tonight, tied for the team lead. Some of that was in garbage time, but he had some nice drives, especially one on Torrey Craig, who is a notable defender where he got to the rim, had a couple nice creative finishes. Yeah, I mean, he looked great, and he provides what we need, which is additional energy, additional athleticism, and defense, right? Mm-hmm. So... now we're going to compare him to Carmelo Anthony.
Well, let me just add to, he's proving to be a fairly competent weak side rim protector as well. Like, he's been a good help side. He comes over and contests shots at the rim. His individual defense maybe not as good, but definitely someone that can help this defense improve on its what will probably be last, if not very close to last in defensive rating after tonight.
Yep. Shout out JM, $5 donation. He says, new Blazers Uprise mission statement. Install Portlandia as Bucks GM. He'll immediately offer Giannis, Middleton, and 4 firsts for Terry Stotts. This sounds like a pretty good plan, man. Yeah, Portlandia can be our insider and get Stotts off our hands. We can, because definitely, honestly, it'd probably be worth it for Milwaukee because the way Stotts elevates players, like Bryn Forbes is going to become Middleton, right? Pat Connaughton is going to become their next Giannis. And they still have another Antetokounmpo that can also be their next Giannis. You know, Stotts will definitely turn those players into that because he definitely, just uprises the talent that he has for sure. Allison says the Blazers Instagram caption is, "It's National Don't Yell at Social Media People Day, so be nice in the comments." Yeah, it's pretty bad. What's going on, Peter? What's going on? I don't know. Leo, Austin, AM, Belgian. We're going to engage more with chat today. But we got to do this. We got to do this. And I know there's going to be a debate with a certain someone in chat. If they're still here, they might have gotten triggered because I said we were going to compare these two players. But you look at what this team needs. This team does not need what Carmelo Anthony hypothetically provides. And I use hypothetically, for a reason. It needs what Nassir Little provides, man. At this point, like, if this team was healthy, it's not. But, once Derrick Jones Jr. is back in the lineup, Nassir Little better be playing ahead of Carmelo Anthony. The plain and simple. Because of the three things I listed off that they are struggling with. Defense, energy, and, I feel like this is overblown, but some people are saying, they just have nowhere near enough athleticism, right? Nassir Little brings all three of those things to the table. Carmelo Anthony brings none of that. Absolutely none of that to the table. Absolutely none. Right? So I ain't even going to sit here and argue that Nassir Little is better in general as a player, even though I kind of believe that, man. I'm not super high on Carmelo, but he is definitely better for what this team needs. Right? Right, Eric? Do you agree with that? Is that a hot take? I don't know.
Well, obviously our offense is better than our defense if we're comparing those two. So, yeah, we need players that can make an impact on the defensive end first and foremost. And, that's funny. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I knew this was going to trigger some people in chat. I just don't have any confidence that that's actually going to happen. So I'm not going to get my hopes up too much for it. I still feel like for all of Melo's faults, he can make a difference in terms of like setting up your offense and using him kind of as a decoy to draw attention from a defense, but not rely on him to actually make shots, if that makes sense. But other than that, I don't know a single thing that he does that Nas doesn't do other than reputation and prior, like, obviously Melo's a Hall of Famer. Nas will probably not be a Hall of Famer, and probably not even like an all-star, but like they're at this point of their careers, it's basically just name recognition versus a second-year player who has barely gotten a chance to play. And there's not really much you can say, because even tonight you saw Nas put the ball on the floor, take the ball to the hoop, get some buckets. Like, so you could even say that maybe even Nas could be better at creating shots if he was given a legit chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony, dude's just up there in age, man. Like, it's not to, put his legacy down of what he did in his prime or anything. Dude's just up there in age. He has no athleticism left. He can't really get by anybody. He can't get downhill to the rim. It's very rare he's able to, Nas is going to be a better slasher than him. And you just look at the way Carmelo Anthony is shooting the three ball this year. He was 34.7% going into this game. And then tonight, Carmelo was 0 for 1 from 3, 1 for 7 from the field, though. So those numbers are going to tank. Rough estimate, he'll be 35% from the field and around 34% from 3. That's horrible efficiency. I think Nas, if given a true consistent chance, could at least match that sort of efficiency while providing more energy and better defense. And here's the thing with Melo, man. Like, if he keeps shooting this bad, he's going to get less defensive attention. Teams aren't going to double him. And but here's the thing. It's not like he's shooting bad because he's getting, occasional defensive attention. Like tonight, I didn't see him get doubled once. He shot 1 for 7. You know what I mean? The types of shots he gets, he's going to get regardless of if teams are paying attention to him or not. That's why I don't understand why teams load up on him. They don't need to. And I think teams will realize that if he continues to shoot this bad. So the whole decoy thing, I don't think that serves any purpose to the team because of A, how much he gives up defensively, B, how inefficient he shoots, and C, teams don't already for the most part, aren't like double teaming him when he has the ball in the post. And I expect that to wane as the season goes on if he doesn't improve his shooting. But, I mean, this is what I expected from Carmelo. He's a career 35% three-point shooter, and he's almost 37 years old. Like, this is what I expected.
Yep, shout out real quick to Mike B for another $5 donation. He says, I love what Olshey did in the offseason, but damn, you got to be dumb to give Stotts 10 years. Is Olshey scared about Dame wanting to leave if they fire him? Dame's locked up for like 5 more years after this one, so I don't think we have to worry about that.
I don't think Dame would leave over that either.
Yep, and this is his 9th season, so I'm hoping that if this season doesn't go well, which it's obviously not going great right now, that he doesn't get that 10th season. And above all else, I mean, even if you like Stotts and you really think he's doing a good job, I think you can explain to Dame, like, look, we've tried this for 9 years. Let's just bring in a new coaching staff and see if we can trigger something that's been missing, and explain it to him that way and say, like, look, we gave it a shot with Stotts. We didn't fire him after the Pelican series. You begged us not to. We're willing to go with you on that. But, like, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's see if we can get something else figured out. And I don't want to make Stotts the fall guy. This is me as like talking to Dame. Like, I don't want to like make Stotts out to be the fall guy, but like someone, like, we need to change this. And unless you want to possibly break up you and CJ and rework the whole team around you, which going into, you know, when Dame's into his 30s now, seems like a tougher way to do it than to just switch out the coach and see if we can, like, maybe bring in some new ideas.
Yeah. And I mean, Dame was upset when they traded Mason Plumlee for Yusuf Nurkic. Would Dame take that back now? No, not at all, you know? Dame understands the business of things, and Olshey's job is to try and make this team as good as possible. And if Olshey feels like firing Stotts is the best way to do that, Dame might not like it, but that doesn't mean that he can't understand the reasoning. So I think there's a legitimate chance that there will be a change after this season, you know, especially if this team continues to play this bad defensively. We'll see how they defend once healthy, but here's the thing. Here's just a point on the whole injured versus healthy defensive thing, right? Our defense through the first 10 games of the season when we were healthy was still bottom 5 in the league. It was still very, very bad, right? And now we're injured. Here's the thing. So many of our flaws haven't improved at all. And if anything, our defense should be improving more with the players we have now, because we don't have good defenders. So there's more room for improvement with a lot of these guys. And a lot of the flaws with our defense isn't due to things that players are incapable of doing. It's due to discipline. It's due to lack of attention to detail. It's due to just lack of execution. It's not due to, you know, I mean, part of it is due to, you know, you have a guy like Melo out there and he can't guard on the perimeter. Yes, that's a problem, but for the most part, our issues are beyond that, and they're not improving with time. So I don't understand, you know, oh, well, once we're healthy, you know, and the team can have like 20 to 30 games healthy, it'll improve defensively. I don't understand that, because they didn't improve from game 1 to game 10 when they were healthy. They haven't improved from game 1 to game 20 in general right now. So what makes people think that once they're healthy, they're going to be that much better than they were to start the season when they were healthy? And what makes people think that this defense will improve with time? Because over the past season and a half, we haven't seen any improvement with the defense at all due to time. Time will not improve this defense. It's obvious at this point to me.
But what do you expect, man? We have Kanter and Melo, so they're bad defenders. So that gives Stotts a complete pass in everyone's mind who thinks that the defense should be better.
It's baffling that people can't understand that, yes, if you replace Kanter and Melo with like a Nurkic and, I don't know, a Jay Crowder, yes, our defense is going to be better, but that doesn't, like, there's also issues that are due to the way this team is coached. Like both those things can exist. People act like it has to be either or, and I don't understand that. Like, how can it only be the coach or injuries? It can't be both. Like, yes, we're we don't have great defensive personnel. Obviously, you're going to play better defense with better personnel regardless, but that doesn't mean that Stotts isn't falling short with his coaching of this defense right now, so I don't know. It's just it's similar to what it was last season. And I don't know, like there's so many issues that aren't due to missing CJ McCollum, right? Who everybody blamed for our bad defense in the first place. The only injury argument you can make if once Derrick Jones Jr. is back is, you have Cantor in instead of Nurkic. But that doesn't mean we should be the worst defense in the league, right? Going into the season, people were saying, they should be 10th to 15th in terms of defense. Replacing Nurkic with Cantor doesn't take us from, above average to the worst defense in the league, which is what we're playing like right now.
We're playing like one of the worst defenses in the league with Nurkic
exactly.
and Robert Covington.
Exactly. So that I think all that shows you that there's deeper issues on this team that go beyond personnel in regards to the defense. And yeah, it's just frustrating, man, because it's like I feel like a lot of these issues are fixable, and if this team just played average defense, like they would be decent even with these injuries. Because you look at things offensively, man, you have enough offensive talent on this team to remain an above average offensive team. You got Dame, you got Gary Trent Jr. that can step up and hit shots. You got Anthony Simons that can step up and hit shots. You got Rodney Hood that, he's had some flashes and he's still kind of getting back into it, but as the season progresses, he'll be a guy that you can rely on more to step up and make some shots. And his Cantor, if the team's shooting bad, is a great offensive rebounder and can clean up some of those misses and convert them into buckets, right? Rocco, I still think at some point this season he's going to get a shot going and be a guy that you can rely on as a shooter. Derrick Jones Jr. was starting to play a lot better offensively before his injury. Like, just looking at this roster, like they're above average offensively. You got a superstar player, a top 8 guy, right? And maybe you'd say their defensive personnel is a little below average, but that's where it's frustrating because I feel like if we had a good defensive coach, this could be an average defense with the personnel we have right now, because an average coach would elevate, a little bit below average defensive personnel into an average defense. And if we did that, we would be an above average team, an above average offense and an average defense. With these injuries is what we should have, in my opinion.
To be an elite defense, you need the personnel and the scheme. To be an average defense, you need to have your team all playing at the same level, the same system, all playing within like a group instead of like individually defense. So this is the problem when everyone breaks down how bad the defense is. They're like, well, Cantor's a bad individual defender. Melo's a bad individual defender. But if these kind of players are put in a scheme that is a good team defense concept, there is no reason why a bad defensive personnel team cannot be at least average. And you see it other places time and time again. And there's no reason why like a team like the Knicks should be one of the top defensive teams in the league. Yes, they have a few good defensive players, but like it's not like they have like lockdown defenders at every position or whatever. And there's lots of examples in the middle of the pack to where like there's teams that can, as long as they play as a unit together, can overcome the defensive efficiencies of the individual play. And this is something for 9 years that has not been addressed once by this coaching staff. The fact that there is always breakdowns off ball, there's people rotating to the wrong positions, wrong people are helping off their guy when they should have stayed home, and they stay home when they should have been helping, and all these problems continue to happen. And then we get blamed, well, you can't do anything because you have Cantor as your starting center. That's not why it's like that. If there was a play in the first half where Dame actually got picked by Giannis, and he fought through the screen. He actually got through. got back to Drew instead of having to switch on Giannis, because if he switched on Giannis, they would have just passed to Giannis and he would have posted him up at the free throw line, kind of like what Dirk did for all those years with the Mavericks. And so Dame recovers to Drew, and he just hits like a mid-range 15-footer with Dame kind of with the hand up in his face, right? And that's not bad defense. That's fine. Like, it's acceptable. They're going to make shots. We can't, like, shut out a team in the NBA. Like, that's never going to happen. And the difference between, like, the top defenses and, like, the middle-of-the-road defenses isn't really even that great when you look at, like, the points per game or whatever they give up. So, like, it's just like little things, a couple possessions here and there where you don't give up a wide open three. Instead, you contest the three, and it might be the difference between winning some of these games and losing some of them. Obviously, tonight, it wouldn't have made a difference probably whether we had a really good defensive system or not. But the fact that the problems still exist, making it so even if we were great on offense tonight, we didn't have a chance to win this game because we would have given up more points than we scored no matter what happened, like you mentioned pregame. So, like, it just bugs me that we can't have at least try to fit the system. And Terry's not changing his system. Like, why not try different things on defense at this point to like, make up for some of those things? Or, I always say, be more aggressive and try to force more turnovers instead of just playing back and letting the defense or the offense dictate what you're going to do and getting whatever shot they want. It just doesn't make sense to me, the people that make excuses for individual players making mistakes that are coach related.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Just a lot of these mistakes are fixable. That's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. A lot of these mistakes are fixable. And here's the thing. Here's something that I have an issue with, man. It's just people say, oh, well, Stotts can't do anything because if he tried this, it definitely wouldn't work. Well, our defense right now definitely doesn't work. And you don't know 100% for sure that if he tried to trap for a full game, that it definitely wouldn't work, right? Let's try it for a game and let's see that it doesn't work, since what we're seeing right now already doesn't work. Here's the thing. If you trap and it's just as bad as this, throwing the trap out there will still be better for us because at least we'll be switching things up and being unpredictable, and the offense will have to adjust to that unpredictability, right? Being as bad as we are right now defensively while trapping is a very low bar too. So that's the thing. Like, I don't see how it would be any worse, if we played more aggressive defense and we trapped. I don't see how it would be any worse than what we're doing right now, because we're already playing such awful defense to begin with. So that's why I just don't understand why not throw stuff out there? That's a big issue I had with last year. Why not throw a trap out there for an entire game and just see what happens? And people will say, oh, you can't do that, you don't have the athletes. I disagree, right? Dame is a good athlete for a point guard. Nas, solid athlete for a forward. Rocco, solid athlete for a power forward. Ant, solid athlete for a point guard. Trent, solid athlete, especially defensively. Like, I think he plays more athletic defensively than us offensively. He's fine athletically. Giles, for a center, is fine athletically. I mean, it's just, I don't think we lack the athleticism to be able to trap. Cantor, when he has trapped occasionally this season, has actually looked decent. And I feel like if you had him trap a lot more, he would only improve at it, just because he'd get more reps, and he doesn't really have many game reps doing that this year. So things like that is just like, why not throw it out there? Like, you have nothing to lose. It's already broken as is. The thing that makes the least amount of sense is to keep trying something that's obviously broken without switching it up because you think that switching it up will be bad too. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yep. And then we got Parlando saying, in the history of the NBA, when teams fire their coaches, they get worse on average the next year. So let me just break this down for you. I am going to completely shut you down, Portlandia. Last year, Lakers win. First-year head coach, Frank Vogel. Year before that, Raptors win. First-year coach, Nick Nurse. Let's see. Who else won? Oh, Ty Lue, the team before that won it, the Cavs. Ty Lue was hired mid-season to take over for Blatt. They win the title. Before that, Steve Kerr comes in, replaces Mark Jackson, wins in his first year. So other than the Warriors winning multiple times, each of the 4 first-time champions in recent history have had a first-year head coach. So don't give me this crap about how if we fire Terry Stotts, we'll be worse. That's completely ludicrous and not even true.
That's facts.
That's facts, man.
Next stream he'll be saying the same thing. It is what it is.
I know. I've already broken that down for him again.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like the team has talent. It's setting like their style of play is very easy to coach, right? You're running for the most part one defensive scheme, maybe with a 2-3 zone mixed in, right? And you're not really holding players accountable for their mistakes, so it's not like you're really focusing on defensive. It doesn't seem like you're focusing much on defensive rotations or positioning, since it's literally not improving. It hasn't improved from game 1 to game 20, so like that's not hard to coach. And then the offense that they run is just a lot of one-on-one and isolation and pick and roll. I don't think that's hard to coach either. So a lot of just the way this team plays, I feel like you could hire any coach, any assistant coach in the league, and they would at least play the same way. Because I don't think there's anything on the court that is due to Stotts. I don't know. There's nothing I see on the court that is due to Stotts being a good coach, in my opinion, right? Sure, you can say he's good for the culture and whatnot, and he's a player's coach and the players like him. Sure, all valid points, but in terms of the on-the-court product and the way they play, there's nothing I see on the court specifically where I'm like, oh yeah, if we, fired Stotts, that might not be as good, or that might, that might suffer, right? Because all it is a lot of isolation and one-on-one and pick and roll, and the defense is not hard to coach either, so...
And so, like, we have Peace and Love saying no matter who coached tonight, we would have still lost. But that's just excusing the same things that happened, the reasons why the few games before that we, lost to some crappy teams and stuff like that. And it's the same problems we have, whether we're playing a good opponent or a bad opponent. So if you want to excuse that and just say, well, Stotts doesn't have to coach a good game tonight because he would have lost anyway, even if we had a better scheme or whatever, that's fine. But in my opinion, if you think like that and you're an NBA player or a coach, you're never going to be a good team or an elite team, because that's just a complete loser mentality.
You just
and like you should have wanted to at least say after this game, at least we gave it our all and had a good game plan. There was nothing we could do about it. They hit an incredible percentage from the 3-point line or whatever. But instead we're like, every time it's like, oh gee, I wonder why this team had their best shooting night of the year against us, like every freaking game. Like,
yeah, man. You have people out here saying, man, like, oh, Milwaukee's just having a special offensive game. And it's like, dang, why does every single team have a special offensive game for themselves against us? What is the common denominator there? Oh, it's us. Yeah, it's frustrating, man. I mean, going into games, you just want to give yourself the best chance to win. You want to maximize your chances of winning the game, right? Our chances still wouldn't have been good to win this game, right? Like, we probably, as you said, still would have lost this game, but it's like we didn't even give ourselves a chance to even be competitive in this game, and that's what I have a problem with. You gotta give yourself a chance to be competitive, and some of it is just... like, there's multiple problems. It's not all Stotts, right? It's not all Stotts whatsoever. It's just when you have a team that comes out with just minimal effort as often as the Blazers do, that's a problem, right? Sure, you can blame the players for not giving effort, but effort is at least a little bit a reflection of the coach, and even if you don't think so, you gotta hold the leadership in account when the soldiers, the troops aren't trying, and you have a game tonight where these guys just come out here and just don't give the effort they need to be giving, and it's something you have to hold that accountable. That's not okay. So whether you want to hold Stotts accountable or something else, like, go ahead, but it's not acceptable.
Yep, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if you're the biggest Stotts supporter, I don't know why you would say like, okay, maybe it's time to change something up and just like give another person a chance. Like I don't know. I don't know how you could feel confident in him making the proper adjustments, or even if he was given the perfect personnel for his system, how he would make that work in terms of winning a championship. So like I'd rather just get someone who would try his best to fit the personnel to whatever scheme works best, not oh well, nothing I can do. It doesn't work with my system. So what am I supposed to do? And then we have injuries on top of that. So
here's what I've always said.
I'm missing 3 starters.
Yeah, here's what I've always said: a good coach fits his personnel to his players. A mediocre coach tries to fit his players to his. No, wait. Let me re-say that. I think I butchered that. A good coach fits his coaching and his schemes to his players, to maximize his players. A mediocre coach tries to fit his players to his schemes. Stotts is the latter. Stotts doesn't, switch things up defensively because we have a more athletic lineup in there. No, he still plays conservative defense even when we have, decent athletes in there. Stotts doesn't he doesn't usually run a more structured offense for the bench without Dame or CJ in the game. They kind of play the same way. And then guys like Gary Trent Jr. and Anthony Simons are tasked with scoring a lot out of isolation. And yeah, they're talented. They can do it, but you'd have a better chance for success if you had a more structured offense. So that's what I've always said, and you see it a lot with like high school coaches. They'll pretty much all of them, and this is the experience I had. They try and fit their players to what they've always done, and they don't switch it up, right? I got stuck with, I'm sure this will trigger people because there's like a couple people out there that get triggered whenever I talk about my basketball experience, but it was a little bit frustrating in high school because 70% of the plays drawn up for me were in the low post against guys that were bigger and stronger than me, even though I was a guy that could handle the ball, was quick on the perimeter, and could shoot threes. When we would ISO, I would ISO on the perimeter about once, if I was lucky, twice a game, and I scored probably 75% out of that because guys wouldn't get out far enough on me because I was playing in the post earlier in the game, and I'd knock down a three, or they'd get out too far, and I'd blow by them. But still, he was an old school coach that loved posting people up, so all my touches were in the post. It was frustrating, right? He was trying to fit me and other players on that team as well to his system instead of fitting his system to his players. You see that with Stotts, in my opinion. He tries to fit. He doesn't try and fit his system to his players. He tries to fit his players to his system, and then people make a bunch of excuses because of the players he's given. And Stotts can't apparently do anything with them.
Yep, and there's some coaches that are completely stubborn. They won't ever change their system, and that's why I want more of a I don't know if it necessarily has to be a younger guy, but it seems like the younger guys seem to try more things, or like the people who have been around less. I shouldn't say necessarily younger, but like if you're trying to prove yourself, you will not just go down with your system when it's not working. Like Stott seems to be of the way where, okay, I have my defensive system, and like even though he said all the right things in the offseason and they promised it would change and all this stuff, like there's no reason why it shouldn't have changed prior to this, or it been like different, especially after last year. And we've talked about this before, but like there's a reason why like a guy like David Vanderpool left us, and our defense went to crap after that. And Stotts actually said that he was trying to get some input from his things, but decided to keep his system. But actually, along those same lines, I heard this. I just heard an interview with Jason Quick earlier today from. It was about a week and a half ago when CJ was, I guess it was maybe 2 weeks now, when it was announced CJ was going to miss 4 weeks at least instead of a week or whatever. And so during that time where we had the extra practice time, Quick said that Stotts told him that with CJ not in the second lineup, they needed to actually have some movement in their offense and stuff like that. It's like, You need movement, even if we have like good ISO players. Like, what are you talking about? So, like, we didn't work on having movement in that second unit, like prior to that a couple weeks ago. This is 2 weeks ago, not at the beginning of the season. So I don't want to hear this crap about, oh, he hasn't had time to implement stuff. No, he only changed it because he had to, because he's missing one of his players, and that's ridiculous to me that a coach in the NBA is that stubborn to think that his system will work after time and time again proving that it's not working, and to not even like try to switch it up or to do anything about it. It's just embarrassing, man. And I know he's not going to get fired right now mid-season unless something really bad happens, but this guy is not going to take us to where we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen really all that much more movement, so he's kind of failing. Gets a pretty low grade in terms of implementing more movement in the second unit.
Yeah, it's not even like it's working. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact that basically he's saying, oh well, normally I'd have CJ who I just who I just give the ball to and he just makes things happen, but now since I don't have CJ, I have to actually coach.
And this is why, Melo's been terrible, but like once again, it's not his fault because like literally, I guarantee you, this is what like Stotts was like. Oh, Melo's going to go to the bench. We can just post him up. That'll be our offense. You know what I mean? Or CJ's in there. He can go ISO, So, that, we're not even trying to get these players in the best position to succeed. It's ridiculous. I cannot believe we have an NBA coach that is this dumb and can't game plan to help his players be better at basketball. It's just mind-blowing. And he gets a pass because Dame likes him. Like, it's ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. Frustrating. Same thing, different day. But, yeah, so once Derrick Jones Jr. comes back, Nassir Little better still be in the rotation, man. And that's all I gotta say. And at some point, I mean, I feel like we kind of started to talk about this, but didn't fully talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you think Nas should get a chance ahead of Melo once Derrick Jones Jr. comes back?
Obviously, if Melo continues to play like this and Nas does, he absolutely deserves a shot. It's going to be frustrating the more Nas sits on the bench and Melo continues to play, because that's what's going to happen most likely. But yeah, I would say that Nas at least deserves a chance to prove that he's not at least as capable as Melo, versus Melo just given that chance just based on his name.
Yeah.
So I would rather allow them both to have an ample opportunity to earn that spot. And if you just bench Little when Derrick Jones Jr. comes back, you're basically not rewarding the people proving it on the floor versus name recognition. And to me, that's another mistake with coaching.
Yeah, I mean, Little deserves a chance ahead of him regardless. He, I'm not even going to put a caveat on it. Yes, he does, because Melo is terrible defensively, and we are terrible defensively. And you got a guy that is decent defensively, in my opinion. And Nas, you play him, and you hope the defense gets better. And the thing is, he's shown flashes of shot-making ability. So you play him, you give him the chance off the bat over Melo. Maybe you play both of them, I guess. I don't know. But, I'd cut Melo's minutes and give him to Nas at this point. And you see if he can consistently make shots, too. But at least he's providing you with things that the team is lacking and the team needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no problem rewarding. It's the same thing, when we started Hood over Trent, I felt like Trent had earned that spot and deserved it. It ended up being kind of, I don't know, we got Hood jump-started a couple games, then he got hurt, so that was kind of frustrating. But, Trent, I felt like earned that right. And then when you start a guy like Hood over him, even if your reasoning is sound and it made sense and it works out or whatever, I still don't like the idea of rewarding someone who hasn't played very well over someone who had been playing well. So I just hope that it comes down to who's playing better on the court is who plays, and yeah, I mean, obviously, uh, if one player is like vastly outperforming another in practice, that's one thing. But from what I've gathered, they're not even really practicing their starters, and Melo's included with that. It's always like, oh, the starters and Melo didn't practice today. It was a rest day for them. And then you see all these practice pictures, and it's always like Simons and someone else going one-on-one or something, like so yeah, it's I'd like to see a system where the players that prove it on the floor are being rewarded.
Yeah. Yep. And if you have to, I don't know. That's why I hate giving promises to Melo. You're giving promises to a mediocre player that if he completely falls off a cliff at the age of 36 or 37, which is very likely because he's 36, almost 37, then going back on those promises is a really bad look, right, for a player that has a lot of pull. So that's why I had a major issue with the promises that were given to Carmelo. We could have easily went out there and gotten somebody like an Ersan Ilyasova who we didn't have to give any promises to and could have been just as serviceable. And then if Nassir Little broke out, Nassir Little could have gotten minutes ahead of him and there would have been no issue. That's why I didn't want Melo back. That's 100% this is 100% what I was worried about. Oh, Little starts balling out and Melo can't hit a shot and can't defend and is providing nothing. What happens then? Oh, it's probably still going to be Melo because we made promises to him about his individual legacy. Like, everybody, even guys that normally agree with me were telling me I was crazy for just absolutely not wanting Melo back. And now we're dealing with exactly what I felt like was potentially going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say like Melo can't come in and still provide a spark occasionally and stuff like that. I just I think we're past the point of giving him like 30-some minutes a game, unless we absolutely have to. And like if you want to like give him a chance, if we're struggling offense, like to see if he has it a certain night, fine. Like I don't have a huge problem with that if that's what we promised him to do. And but if unless he starts hitting and being a more pivotal part of the team, I don't have a problem with giving his minutes.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Even if he provides a spark offensively and has a good offensive game, his defense is so bad that I feel like he's giving that up on the other end regardless. So he's still not a positive, And then if he's not hitting, then he's a huge negative. And the thing is you just look at his numbers on the season, on average, he's not hitting.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, I feel like he's included with that Damon CJ group that don't have to be accountable on defense. And if we had a good team system and everyone was accountable, these things would be being mentioned, or it would be obvious that Melo was the one breaking down a backside rotation or whatever, just like Dame and CJ do. And so, like, until that gets addressed as a whole team thing, because Melo's only been around for 2 years, but it's been a problem the entire Stotts era. So, like, I just feel like it's not even good. Like, I don't know why we talk about anyone's individual defense, because, like, it literally does not matter. We could have, like, 4 really top-notch defenders in the NBA, and if we had one person out there that continually breaks down on the backside, it's going to give up an open three. So, like until these guys are held accountable and stuff like that, it's just so frustrating that we don't have a system that that like calls these guys out or like gets them to change their ways and be less lazy on that end.
Having a better individual defender will still have at least a little bit of a positive impact. Like you switch out, you give Melo's minutes, the defense better. The defense is better. And the thing is like Nas, I think, is good enough offensively that he's not going to give up, he's not going to be such a negative offensively that, the defensive upgrade from Melo to him is countered out, So I don't know. It's especially when Nurkic gets healthy. Nas is a much better fit next to Kanter off the bench. He can help, and I'd still try and stagger, Rocco and DJ. But here's the thing. Nas is kind of in the Rocco and DJ mold where he's switchable with those guys. forward that's switchable, that can guard multiple positions. And then you have that off the bench, so you can stagger those two guys, but at least, in general, your power forward off the bench is somebody that can help Cantor out defensively and isn't a poor defender next to him. So at least, you're not going to have the terrible defensive... I don't know, you'll still have bad defensive stretches for sure, but the worst defensive stretches of the season I felt like were when Melo and Cantor were playing together. So just from a fit perspective there too, that's why I want Nas to get a shot now, so that by the time we get healthy, we know who we can count on. Like we kind of know what Melo is going to provide, and the only wild card right now is he going to figure out his shot, or is he going to keep shooting this bad? Whereas Little is more of like an unknown, so that's why I want to figure that out. So once we get healthy, we have confidence in him, and he has a set in stone spot in the rotation next to Cantor. Mm-hmm. So that's how I feel about that. I know a lot of people disagree. Kyle Wilson, $5 donation. He says, what has Stotts done to stick around for so long? We've had much better coaches who accomplished much more than him that we booted out the door. I mean, the obvious answer is Dame likes him. Appreciate the dono. Other than that, I don't know. Honestly.
So I'll let you answer this one. So why wasn't the defense better when Melo went to the bench midway through the second? From that point until he checked back in midway through the third was arguably the worst defensive stretch.
Maybe because they were going against the starters. I don't know. There's much more problems than just Melo, but Melo is the worst individual defender on the team. But it goes back to what Eric said about how there's much deeper problems, whereas you can have better defenders on the floor, but a breakdown will still lead to, bad defensive possessions, right? If four people do their job and one guy messes up, which is why, those mistakes need to improve. But you still, in general, long-term, give yourself a better chance of being better defensively if you play better defensive players. It doesn't mean that Melo, the unit that's playing next to Melo is automatically going to be worse defensively than a unit playing without Melo. But if you want to get that deep, if you look at the on-off numbers with Carmelo Anthony, the defense is noticeably worse with him in the game on the season as a whole.
Shout out to JM for the $2 donation. Our favorite question, hard to speculate, but who is a good Stotts successor?
I'm on board with Jerry Stackhouse.
So here's the deal. This question, the reason why I don't like this question is because we aren't involved in the interview process. So I could name thousands of names that right now, including 10 or so, which I think would be worthy of interviewing right away. Mm-hmm. But if I don't like their answers to the questions I've provided in the interview, I'm not just going to say this is the guy who I picked, I'm going to hire him, that was my plan or whatever. Yeah. So I would have a direct line of questioning meant to elicit responses that I want to hear, and if I don't hear them, I'm not going to hire that person. So I would want someone who, if I'm asking them what their defensive scheme is, how they would approach, okay, so we're playing the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, what would be your defensive game plan to approach this team? And they're well, my system is this way, and this is the system that I would run. And then I ask them about another team, and he gives me the same response, even though it's a team that plays different. I would not want a coach like that. I want a coach who would answer it look, you have to change and tweak your game system to each team you play. You have to be prepared to do different things within a game, and you can't just rely on one kind of defense in the NBA to work all the time against every team and every player, because it doesn't work. So I would be looking for answers like that to say well, we could be playing this team and they have a point guard who does this off the pick and roll, and I would defend it this way sometimes, but sometimes I would throw this look at him just to kind of mix it up a little bit and be less predictable. And then you could say, well, then they have a backup point guard that plays a completely different way. So instead of doing that same thing with him, I would have my guys do it this way or whatever. And so I would be looking for guys who are that detailed and are and then I would ask him, well, okay, so what happens if you try all those things and they're not working? And then So, like, obviously, you don't want someone who would just be like, well, what am I going to do if you just hit shots? They wouldn't say that in an interview, but, like, obviously, you can tell kind of, like, if they have an answer for that or what they would do. You want guys who would be willing to try anything possible to try and shut someone down versus just, like, oh, no, my system doesn't work. I don't have the personnel to do it. What am I supposed to do? And then also, I would want someone who came in and said, you know what? It's got to start with the best players on the team have to commit on that end of on defense, and it's not acceptable for them to not hold themselves accountable. And they can say it all they want, like they did this preseason, but like I'm going to make sure those guys are held to the same standards as everyone else on the team, because we cannot succeed as a defense unless we're all on the same page. And then also on offense, I want someone who says, like, look, we have the personnel to be a great offensive team no matter what system I run, but I would like to try some innovative things. I would like to do some more off-ball things, some ways to use our players to get going towards the basket versus going away from the basket. There's all kinds of questions I would ask, and then I would hire whoever gave me the best answers to those questions.
Yep. Let's watch Terry Stotts' interview.
All right.
This will be fun. All right.
Terry,
5 minutes long, Eric. This is a long one.
The defensive problems. It seemed like you, against penetration, you helped off the corner shooter quite a bit, and penetration hurt you a couple other times recently. What can you do to fight that?
Well, individually, we have to be better on the ball and take away angles to the basket. They really didn't hurt us with pick and rolls. You're right.
Here's the problem. When they do that, guys still don't recognize the situation and help off the corner anyways. So I think the problem is deeper than that. But I'll play his answer.
Well, individually, we have to be better on the ball and take away angles to the basket. They really didn't hurt us with pick and rolls. You're right. There was penetration, whether it was in transition or in the half court. They did a good job of finding the weak side shooters. I don't want to discourage helping, but if we do help from the bottom guy, then we got to rotate to the corner, and we got to be better at it.
Mm-hmm. And what about Melo, Terry? He's obviously going through a really rough patch the last 5 or 6 games. With a guy like Naz coming off the bench and having such a good game, can you afford to stick with Melo, and how does that dynamic work out?
Well, Naz didn't come off the bench. Naz started.
Okay. He came off your bench. He's been sitting there a long time.
He started the last 2 games.
I know, Terry.
Oh, Dwight, man, that's funny. That's the funniest thing I've heard all year, bro. Well, he came off your bench. Oh, that was gold, man. That was absolutely gold.
With Melo, and how does that dynamic work out?
Well, Naz didn't come off the bench. Naz started.
Okay. He came off your bench. He's been sitting there a long time.
He started the last 2 games.
I know, Terry. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
He's buried treasure, basically.
I'm sorry?
He's buried treasure.
Oh my goodness. Look at Stotts' face. Oh my goodness, Dwight James. Oh my goodness. Oh.
The man said buried treasure.
Terry's just like, what? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. That's the best. Oh, dude. I don't even know what to say. That's just golden.
Buried treasure, basically.
I'm sorry?
He's buried treasure.
I don't know what that means, but I thought Naz had
been buried quite a while there. He hardly has ever played. Through the first 18 games of the season, he hasn't played.
So what's your question?
Well, my question is, will he get some of Melo's playing time, or are you going to continue to play Melo and hope he works his way out of this massive shooting slump?
Well, I wouldn't call it a massive shooting slump. He's had a couple poor shooting games.
He's had a poor shooting season, Terry.
Massive shooting slump, but no, Melo has earned the right to play through a shooting slump.
Great.
Next question.
Great. Great.
Told you.
He goes to Jason Quick with the
So
Athletic.
stupid. Jason Quick?
Coach, how do you hold your players accountable when it comes to defense?
Good question. Jason Quick and Dwight James are the only two people whose questions I respect. From all the people that ask questions, those two guys' questions are perfect. Like, that is a great question because I've been wondering that. We'll see what this answer is. I'm very curious.
Coach, how do you hold your players accountable when it comes to defense?
In what way are you asking?
Of course he doesn't have an answer. Bruh.
Like, playing time, film session, I'm curious how you hold them accountable to get better at defense, because this has been a topic of conversation for a while.
I think in general, in NBA game, I think reducing playing time is not the answer for the most part. Sometimes with young players, you can do that.
Dude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm positive. People are upset about me positive, but you could hold young players accountable with playing time, but not older players. All right. I mean, pretty much would have guessed that, right, Eric? Like,
yeah, I mean, we've been saying that all along. Yeah.
I have a problem with. But he said for the most part, playing guys less if they're playing crappy defense doesn't work apparently. So it doesn't matter how crappy a defense they play. They're going to play however many minutes it says on the note card that he has going into the game. As I said, note card coach.
Playing time.
Just for reference, so this is why players get scared when they come into the game when they're a young player, and it's if they make one mistake, like a Harry Giles, he goes right back to the bench, doesn't really get a solid chance to prove himself again until there's an injury. So like this is why we said, I don't know how many times you and I have said that there is no accountability for the star players on this team on that end, and Stotts just basically admitted that he does not do anything to hold anyone accountable for their mistakes on defense if they're a veteran player that likes him and is vouching for him to stay as coach.
Yep.
Is not the answer for the most part.
And I don't know how guys like Peace and Love and Portlandia can like listen to that answer and actually say, oh, you know what? That's great coaching. Just don't hold anyone accountable on defense. Like, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's just where the Stotts bias comes in.
Yeah.
Reducing playing time.
I'm curious to see what else he says
is
here,
not
though.
the answer for the most part. Sometimes with young players, you can do that. We have, after every game, we usually have a film session pointing out teaching points, things that we can do better, things that we did well. I don't know if it's a question of accountability because I think it's more about teaching and coaching rather than necessarily holding it. I think that's a catchphrase as far as what people like to talk about. I think everybody on our team is accountable. We talk to them about responsibility and ways that we have to get better, things that we have to do to get better, and that's part of coaching.
Wait, did he just like subtly admit that it's the coaching is the issue with the defense? I don't know if you heard it the way I heard it, but the players are accountable and we hold them accountable. It just comes down to coaching. Did you hear that the way I heard it? Like, I'm so confused.
I don't think he meant it that way, but I could see how you interpret it.
Like, guys hold themselves accountable and we hold them down accountable in regards to improvement. It just comes down to, watching film and them coaching them. The coaches coaching the players, right?
But like
yeah,
Kyle
I think that's
said,
kind of what he meant.
Like Kyle said, he literally just said he doesn't believe in the older players being held accountable or like getting their.
I'm so confused then. No, my goodness.
Then what do you think you have to teach better then?
Ooh, Jason Quick, let's go, man. I love how the most hyped, I wasn't hyped at the game tonight. I am more hyped at these questions because they're actually decent questions, which is rare. But it's always Jason Quick and Dwight Jaynes, man, because that is a great question. Like, these guys are asking some of the things that I would want to ask.
Better things that we have to do to get better, and that's part of coaching.
Then what do you think you have to teach better then?
Depends on the night. You know, tonight, whether it's transition, some nights it's pick and roll. Some nights it's weak side help. Some nights it's containing the ball and penetration. I think as you go through a season, different teams pose different problems. And when you go into that, you have a game plan. And whether it's executing a game plan or individually being better.
See, he won't say, like, what's wrong, though. You know? What do you have to coach better? Oh, well, you got to coach for different aspects of defense. That's his answer. It's like, okay, then what isn't working then? What is the issue? Tell me what the issue is with our defense, because our defense is hot ass.
And more often than not, all the things he mentioned are problems almost every game. So, like, how is it? It's dependent on the game itself. No, that's been a problem for years. No matter who your opponent is or what you're doing.
I mean, he was asked, "What do you got to coach better?" Is he saying all those areas are areas where he needs to coach better? Like,
basically.
Yeah, interesting.
Next question goes to Jamie Hudson, NBC Sports Northwest.
Coach, so with Nassir in his career night, how would you describe his performance?
Well, it was a bright spot for tonight, for sure. I mean, he shot the ball really well. Nas had a tough go the last few months, and it was good to see him get out there and see the ball go in the basket, get some extended run, and I was really happy for him.
Next question, Aaron Fentress, the Oregonian.
Oh, this will be fun.
Coach, what gives you optimism that the team can become a top-tier defense? I know there's talk before the season started, like Covington talked about finishing in the top 10 in defensive rating. Do you still feel confident this team can at least get in the upper half?
Well, it's going to be for our overall for the season. No, I think we can be a better defense. I think we can be a top 10, top 15 defensive team when we have the team that Nurk is a big part of our defense. I'm not using injuries as an excuse, but
yes, you are, and all the people that support you, that's all they use as an excuse. So maybe they should take your advice and not use injuries as an excuse. I don't know, just an idea. I mean, you're the one who said it, Terry, and we're talking about your supporters here, but yeah, I don't know. But you said you're not using injuries as an excuse, but you're literally in the middle of using an injury as an excuse. So I don't really understand the contradiction there.
Obviously, I haven't heard this, but I want so badly for someone to say, well, what's your excuse when Nurk was there then?
Oh, I know.
Be a top 10, top 15 defensive team when we have the team that, Nurk is a big part of our defense. I'm not using injuries as an excuse, but Nurk is a big part of our defensive I don't know necessarily game plan, but he has a presence on defense, and we miss his presence defensively. We've had a couple injuries with Rocco and DJ.
Yeah, for a couple games.
I'm not using excuses, but those are the reasons why I think that we can be a top 10 defensive team.
Terrible, 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 terrible answer. Worst answer of the season. Because, one, he's literally contradicting himself. 2, we were trash when all those guys were healthy. 3, the difference between being maybe the worst defense in the league and a top half defense should not simply be Yusuf Nurkic and nothing else. That's just a terrible answer.
And we talked about this. It's when your schemes are that bad, you can't beat. It doesn't really matter. And there's plenty of coaches who can scheme average to below average defenders and make them a top-notch defense.
Yep. So good old Stotts interview. I like the Fentress asked a good question, though. That was the most unexpected thing of the night. Actually, no, it was still the buried treasure. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
So let me just address this. So Portlandia once again is saying like you're going to lose players if you're negative all the time. And here's what I'll say to that.
Oh, we don't even do your spot. That's such a terrible take. It's so bad.
No, I know, but I just want to answer for the people who might be thinking, yeah, we don't want to be negative, whatever. So, a guy like Dame, if he wants to win a title for Portland like he says he does, he will not have any problem being coached to be better on defense. And if that takes some sort of negative coaching style or whatever, it doesn't have to necessarily be negative. And that's the problem people have. Like, they think accountability means negative. No, it's like not letting stuff happen that's costing us games continue to cost us games. And if you can show Dave how not doing things he's doing, or Melo, or whoever we're talking about, if you can show them that these kind of things are costing us games or chances to win games, or is the reason why we don't just have a blowout win and you could rest the fourth quarter or something and get like a little bit of extra rest some games, like if you can show them that this isn't a negative thing, just we need to improve this part of it, any good player would want to like do that too. They would want to win, right? They don't care about they don't want to look. Dame doesn't want to be thought of as like the worst defender in the league like he was a few years ago. Like, there's no way that guy wants to be thought of that way on that end. So like, he needs his coaches to help him like do and see what he's not doing. And if anyone takes that negatively, like, then they just don't have the mindset to be an elite player, in my opinion. And I don't believe that Dame would have any problem with being shown proper technique or being pointed out when he makes mistakes on that end.
If you think Damian Lillard from Oakland, California needs to be coddled, or he's going to throw a temper tantrum, then you don't know Dame and you ain't paying any attention. It's that simple.
It's basically like the guys, like, anytime we lose the game, like, oh, Dame would look great on the Lakers, let's trade incoming, like, Danny Green for Damian Lillard, here we go. Like, that's basically what they're saying. Dame should request a trade to the Lakers. Yep. It's basically like the same thing. Like, you're basically going against everything this guy has stood for or represented in his life, and I just don't believe that he would just switch his personality because he got yelled at or something.
Shout out Kyle Wilson, $5 donation. He's using that quote, "You'll lose your stars if you're negative," says a Stotts fan, and he says that he's laughing thinking about Greg Popovich and Bobby Knight. Yeah, man, how Greg Popovich win 5 championships? How didn't he lose his stars? You know, they respected him and he was hard on them. I don't understand how that works, man. But yeah, holding players accountable, professional athletes accountable is not disrespectful. It's I don't know. Like, I don't know. Do you want to go ahead?
Well, like, I've talked about this before, but like, Steve Kerr came in and the first thing he did was tell Steph Curry that he was going to be held accountable on the defensive end and he wasn't going to allow him to just hide and be a disadvantage for them on that end. And Steph Curry responds with his becoming an MVP the next 2 seasons. And part of that was because he improved his defense to a level that got the team overall from a nice little story to a championship level team. And no one says, I've never heard anyone be like, oh, Steve Kerr is such a jerk, he came in here and hurt my feelings and I didn't want to play defense and he made me cry because he yelled at me. Like, do you think like guys did that on the Warriors? And if they did, they probably got shipped out of town because they weren't gonna be helpful to them winning a championship anyway. So
we need to stop treating this damn organization like it's Pee-wee basketball with 5-year-olds. Yeah. Like, it's just ridiculous to me, man. It's just ridiculous. My goodness. Yeah, I don't know. It's the whole idea. Like, this goes to like what Charles Barkley said on that halftime show on TNT, with just like us, I don't know, and the whole idea that just we're happy being just in the playoffs and just being there and being good enough to maybe, make it to the second round. Oh my goodness, right? And that's kind of like the feeling around the championship. Not we need to contend, we need to go win a championship at all costs, right? No, it's, oh, you can't be mean to the players, you got to be nice to them, you gotta be their friend, and you know, yeah, and then maybe we can win a championship sometime. That'd be cool. Like, I hate that attitude. It's not competitive, and it's not the attitude professional athletes or professional organizations should have. And I think Dame would be the first to tell you that. And I think you know, the people that try and push that narrative is just, I don't know. Like, you can think that way, that's fine, but that's more reserved for like a peewee basketball team, not an NBA organization with a bunch of millionaires and grown men, as if they can't handle a coach yelling at them, man. Like, dude, you see what like soldiers go through training to become soldiers, man. That's so much harder than, oh, Terry Stotts yelled at me because I was lacking defensively. I was slacking off on that end, right? You ain't putting these guys through a military boot camp or anything. It's professional sports. These guys are paid so much damn money. You don't need to coddle them, man. And the whole idea that, oh, if you're hard on players, they automatically get alienated. You know, I don't think that's the case with this team, and I don't want players like that on this team. If I'm a GM, I ain't bringing any players like that in. Like, and maybe people can say, oh, well, O'Shea has brought those types of people in, but I don't hear that. For the most part, it seems like they got guys that wouldn't have an issue with being, you know, held accountable or coached, you know, a little bit harder, you know. And I'm not saying that Stotts should sit here and scream a bunch of expletives and you know, call Dame a bunch of insults and call everybody a bunch of, you know, mean words or anything like that. That's not what it means, and it seems like people get that confused. So that whole narrative is just, it frustrates me, man. Like, it's so just it just makes me facepalm, man.
And so let me just make this point about Portlandia. So, like, he presents a view that I am constantly hearing on Twitter and other social media and from other fans. And so, like, when we address him, we're not necessarily just addressing him or giving him attention. We're trying to tell you guys what we think and what we see when we see someone like Chad Doing or Danny Meringue or someone like that say these same things on Twitter, and how we like to respond to that, or what we would say in response to those things. And I am sick of these people blaming the personnel when, you know, until there was injuries, there was no talk about how bad everything was. Like, even with the good personnel, it was like, oh, they haven't had time to do anything. But you see other new first-year coaches implement their system somehow, and they're playing good defense, like you've mentioned the Steven Silas thing. So they traded Harden just a few weeks ago, and since they've been playing great defense and stuff like that. So stuff like that is just, like, we're just telling you guys, if you want to or feel the way we feel, this is how you can respond. This is what we think we would say, and so we're just trying to like help everyone see what we're seeing.
Yep. I want a damn championship. That's what I want. Let's watch Dame's interview, because people want us to watch this. It's not minutes long. We'll probably end off this stream with Dame's interview, because somebody said Jason Quick got on him about the defense, so I'm interested to hear that interaction.
Damian, is this one of those games where you are less disappointed than you are just thinking about turn the page, getting ready for tomorrow? Or are you upset?
I mean, obviously it's disappointing anytime you have that type of loss, but with a game tomorrow, you know, we don't have time to dwell on it or to, you know, beat ourselves up too hard. We know it was a tough game coming in, and you know, I watched, you know, their previous few games, and they have been, you know, not playing the best, and, you know, coming back onto their home floor, you had to expect that they was going to come out and try to, you know, have a much better effort and get things turned around at home. And, you know, they played with good pace. They loaded up on the ball, you know, with a lot of the things I was involved in, and they shot the shit out of the ball. So, you know,
apologies for the curse word.
You know, having more presence on the ball, being more physical. But they were the better team tonight. They got a lot of shooters out there. You got a guy like Giannis getting downhill, a guy like Drew Holiday getting downhill. So you gotta respect what they can do when they attack, and when they kick it out. They got knockdown shooters out there, and when they shooting the ball as well as they were tonight, we're gonna be up against it. And they ran us out the gym tonight.
Thanks.
Next question is Jason Quick from The Athletic.
Hey, Dame, regardless of how well they shot the ball tonight, you guys this season have been up against it defensively. You don't rank very well.
Where do we rank right now?
28th or 29th. What do you make of that? I mean, because you guys made such a big deal both in the off-season, training camp, and the early season about defense, that here we are in the same spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we work. I think the effort is there. I think it's something that we care about. I just think that we don't do the things that we need to do consistently enough. I think that's what it comes down to.
I do agree with that.
If you look at all of our games, you'll see a good first quarter and a good second quarter, and then a bad third quarter and a bad fourth quarter, or a bad start and then a good third quarter and a good half of a fourth quarter and then a drop off. So I think when you look at
here's the thing, them having a good quarter or two just shows how insanely bad their defense is when it drops off. Because it would be one thing if they were consistently playing defense at the 28th as at the 28th best team in the league sort of level, but I mean, I kind of agree with that. They'll be a decent defensive team for half a game, and then the second half, they'll be so far beyond bad. They will be so terrible for a half. They'll be that's the thing that gets me is yeah, you'll have a good quarter here or a good half here, but when it's bad, it is so inexplicably bad. So,
our rating, our ranking defensively, that number never lies. But I think if you're somebody watching the game, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that it's not our effort or how much attention we're paying to it. I think it's just a matter of us being able to sustain certain levels of, that defensive intensity and focus and communication. A lot goes into that. And I think it's more issue of that than us, just coming back and being a terrible defensive team. We don't sustain it, for long enough periods of time. And we fortunate enough to be in the position that we're in, to have won more games than we've lost so far this season.
Definitely fortunate.
I think because we haven't been a great defensive team the last year or two or three, whatever. I don't know. I don't even pay attention to, the defensive rating. I just focus on, are we winning or are we losing? But I think because of that, people only focus their attention on defensively, they aren't great. But, we're aware of that, and, we're trying our best and, trying to correct it and trying to win games.
If I can ask one more big picture question, though, if you take one step back, defense, you need defense to win championships.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're about. But you guys are so far away from it. Do you feel any closer to winning a championship than?
I mean, I don't think. No, if we're the defensive team that we've been so far this season, we don't have a chance to win a championship. And
right.
Right now, we aren't a championship team because, you don't have a chance, being one of the bottom teams defensively, and that's just the reality of the situation. And I'm aware of that. I'm not going into these games saying, all right, we can be a bottom-ranked defensive team and we can win a championship. I'm not crazy, but my job is to understand that we struggle defensively and to try to be a part of correcting that, each game. So I think that's what our mentality has been. It's we're aware of our struggles defensively, and we know that we're not a championship team right now. But if we sit here and say, all right, we struggling defensively, you know, what do you want us to do? We got to continue to work and move forward and at least make an effort to, you know, become, if we 28th, you know, let's try to work our way to 27th and then 26th. As far as big picture, you know, I'm not in control of, you know, how that happens. You know, I'm just one person, but I do know that I'm someone that needs to be contributing to us making an effort to improve our defense, and that's all I can do. So I think as a group, that's what we try to focus on.
How do you feel about those answers? I like his answer. I like his answer. I like that.
I'm glad he's honest, and yeah, I mean, obviously we completely agree that they have to be better defensively. The only thing I don't get is, so it has to be better, and it's not being sustained. So how is that not related to effort or like focus?
That's the. Well, then later he said, we need to sustain our defensive intensity and focus, exactly. And, you know, so like that part isn't consistent. So it was a little bit of a contradiction. But for the most part, I agree with what he said.
Yeah. So this goes back to me. Like, I feel like they're not being put in the right positions to make that possible to be a better defensive team. And they're just relying on, oh, well, when Nurk comes back, we'll be good in defense. Same thing that happened in the bubble, right? Oh, we're getting Collins and Nurk back. Our defense will automatically go from like last to like the best defense ever because, you know, it definitely wasn't 3-point shooting and perimeter defense that was our problem, even though we were near, like, I think we're 13th in points in the paint defended, and we were near the top in the league in rim protection, all that kind of stuff. 2-point field goal percentage defended. We were good in all those stats. But somehow getting a couple of bigs back will make those things stay the same, but our perimeter defense go from like horrible to good. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So the fact that Stotts once again brings up Nurkic as the reason why we can't have a good defense is just puzzling to me when our biggest problem is the 3-point percentage of the other team and our perimeter defense, our pick and roll defense. And those are not things that having a top-notch center other than maybe a guy like Anthony Davis who can trap and switch and be okay in those situations. But like, I mean, that's never going to happen. We're never going to have a guy like that. So we need to have a better system to combat those. And getting Nurkic back healthy, or CJ especially, is not going to change the way our defense are because those guys aren't being taught how to defend properly.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say about his comments is I think he says, oh, I'm only one person. He's the leader of this team, right? He can go beyond just, you know, focusing on himself. Like, I think he needs to hold other players a little bit more accountable for their defense. The problem is when you're contributing to the issue and you're struggling defensively, it's hard to hold others accountable for their defense when you're not really getting it done yourself. So he needs to try 100% to be as good of a defender as possible. It's tough for him because he has so much offensive responsibility and he has to do so much on the offensive end that it's almost like he's going to get burnt out if he's, you know, giving it 110% every single possession on the defensive end. You know, that's tough, especially without CJ, where a lot of games he's playing 38 minutes, which I think would probably lead the league. So, like, that top part is hard, but almost, you know, he does need to hold himself accountable as accountable as he can on the defensive end and trying best to fix his issues, not only to help the team just, you know, because him being a better individual defender would help the team, but also so that he can hold other players more accountable. And, you know, he's not a Draymond Green type of leader, but sometimes I wonder if this team needs that guy who is just on guys' asses and motivating them, and somebody like that in the locker room that will get guys busting their ass on defense, because we don't really have that. You know, it's not Stotts, right? Stotts isn't Tom Thibodeau, and Dame's not that type of leader, and I'm not saying he should be like that. You know, he can only lead in his own style, which is a pretty personality-based thing. But in general, he is the leader of this team, so he needs to hold himself as well as those around him to as high of a level as possible. And maybe he is doing that and is not sorting itself out. Only he knows. But he does have the power as the leader of this team to do that.
And this is why, I'm pretty sure you and I are at the forefront of the Stotts isn't a good offensive coach either campaign, right? Because long before anyone had a problem with Stotts and excused everything that happened offensively, you and I still had a problem with him offensively as well as defensively. And people always say, "Oh, look at his offense. It's always so highly rated. It's so good." But just think, on a game-by-game basis, how much Damian Lillard has to do, how incredibly tough shots he has to make, how he had to expand his range to 35 feet just to get off three-point shots cleanly sometimes. And all these things contribute to him having to expend so much energy on that end. Whereas a guy we talked about earlier, Steph Curry, gets open shots sometimes just in the flow of the offense, and it's easy for him, and then he can expend more energy on defense. So these are all related. Our offense, when you have an ISO heavy offense, you talked about your high school experience. If they ISO'd you every play, that's tiring, man. That's you could break down a defense, you could probably score a lot, but you get worn out by having to drive to the hoop every time or having to make a play for your whole team. You are the only one who can set up an offense. You're the only one who can pass the ball and get an assist because no one else can break down a defender and get by him. And to have to do that multiple times within a play, sometimes they have to do a pick and roll, and then so he has to go through it. He has to go down and get bumped by a big guy and stuff like that. That's taxing on a guy. So if we had a more an offense that allowed him to score in easier ways and allowed us to get more offense for the other guys getting easy baskets, whether that be in transition or some movement off ball towards the basket, then this guy wouldn't have to lay it all on the line on the offensive end, and he wouldn't be this dang tired to play defense on the other end. And that's not excusing his defense or anything. It needs to improve. I was hard on him last game, even though he won the game. But seriously, I feel like they're all intertwined, and it all comes back to the coaching of this team. And until we just stop doing these things, we're it's fine, we just have injuries right now, that kind of stuff, that's never going to lead to this team getting better. That's just you're just waiting for something to happen or for better personnel. And that's the attitude of all these people who hate Olshey, is they're just saying basically, oh, well, what's Stotts supposed to do until Olshey gets him some better players? Well, I don't know. Why don't you try coaching up and making the players you do have better or something? That's just
job.
How I feel.
So and everything you just said is exactly why I have a problem with Stotts' quote to Jason Quick about, now that CJ's out, we need more movement from the bench lineup, which basically implies, when we have CJ and, also implies Dame as well, when we have those guys, we don't need that much movement. We just give the ball to them and they make everything happen. But that's insanely taxing and requires a ton of energy that is then lost on the defensive end, whereas you could maybe have an offense that's just as productive, but maybe they're not quite so responsible for making everything happen. Instead, the structure of the offense is able to make more happen, and it saves those guys energy on that end, and they're able to give more energy forth on the defensive end. It's all intertwined, as you said. I 100% agree with all that. I will play the rest of this.
Next question goes to Jamie Hudson, NBC Sports Northwest.
Tonight, Dame, obviously Nassir Little was a big bright spot. How would you describe his game, and what was it like to see him get going like that?
Over the last year, Nas has been through a lot. And, just to see him in the gym, this summer when I would be in the facility, he was in the facility, getting up shots. And when we was getting ready to come back, he was working, and I would see him, at other facilities just training. I could tell he was just itching to get back out there because he didn't play in the bubble. So So to see him, miss some time at the beginning of the season and then come back and not be in the rotation and to go out there and have a huge game like he did tonight, I think is a confidence booster for him. It's good for our team to see him have that type of game. And I think it reminded me of a game last season where, we had a game we struggled and we lost. But GT kind of came into his own at OKC last year. I think he had 32. And it was just like we lost the game. We weren't in the best place at that time. But we found something, and now he's figured it out. He's a rotation player. And, he's a big part of what we do and a big part of our team. So to see a similar performance from Nas tonight, I think for me personally, I'm looking at it like, hey, we might this might be it. We might have found another young wing that, can continue with confidence and help our team continue.
Might have found some buried treasure.
Next question, Aaron Fentress, the Oregonians.
Damian, you guys clearly have had some injury issues, but do you still feel that if this team gets healthy, that you still have the personnel to become a better defense?
Definitely. When you shorthanded and you're dealing with injuries the way we are, you end up playing much younger and less experienced players, and there's a learning curve. The coaches can put in whatever game plan they want, but certain situations come, and because of how often I've been on the floor and how long I've been in the league, I recognize it. I don't have to be the world's greatest defender, but in certain situations that I can get by and I can handle because I just recognize situations and I recognize terms and I know personnel. I know what guys like to do just from my experience on the floor. And when you lose that, it just makes it, that's one more hurdle. You got younger and less experienced players that have to go through that learning curve. They got to figure it out through their experience. So I think
I don't disagree with what he's saying there. Like I agree with what he's saying, but I don't think it's responsible for the defense because although, CJ's experience might help him recognize situations better than Anthony Simons, just in terms of them as individual defenders and being solid off the ball, I think Anthony is better in those areas, so it cancels out. And it's therefore I'm not going to use CJ's injury as an excuse. And Derrick Jones Jr. We've had one of Derrick Jones Jr. and Rocco the past 4 games. With both those guys, really the only defensive player, the only defensive loss is Yusuf Nurkic, and that doesn't explain, as you said, the lack of perimeter defense and giving up so many threes and those sort of things. But I'll play the rest of his answer.
Them getting this experience is going to make them grow as players. It makes them. So I think them getting this experience is going to make them grow as players. It makes them. It gives them a better, more ability to come in the game and help the team and impact games when we get healthy. And you add, CJ, and you add Nurk, and then you get Zach, and you put all these guys who have the experience and have been on the floor in big minutes and have been around, and now you have young players who were forced to grow and come along. So now they're coming into the game as different players, basically. And I think.
Who's that?
Okay, well, the interview just cut off there. That's weird. In the middle of his answer. I'll skip the ad. Maybe it was just an ad right before the end. Oh, nope. That was the end of the interview. Weird. But, yeah, so, I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says. I just think the issues run deeper. It was just a question based on personnel, so I understand that answer. In regards to the personnel, it's just, I don't know, man. Like, the defense, I mean, there's deeper problems than the personnel, so I would have liked to hear him say, I feel like we have good personnel, but there's a lot of issues that we need to fix if we're going to have a chance of being a decent defensive team or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so let me just address something Peace and Love is saying in chat. So he's basically saying, like, oh, did Kerr suck last year, or was it personnel? Basically saying So once again, like Tori mentioned several times, it's not like 100% one thing or the other thing, but these problems have occurred now no matter what the personnel has been for Portland. Last year with Kerr was an outlier compared to all the other seasons, but they lost their whole starting five basically that season. Like basically all their good players got hurt. So like we're comparing, you're trying to say that having last year we had Dame and CJ. I know Dame missed a few games around the All-Star break, but for the most part, we had Dame and CJ almost all of last year. We had Melo, we had Hassan Whiteside. So it wasn't like our two top players got hurt and were out for the entire season like most of their guys were. So like to compare that to now this year, we still have Dame this year. We still have a top 10 player in this league. And yeah, you could say like the injuries hurt, and it is going to make a difference having a CJ versus not having a CJ. Obviously, there is a difference there. But when it comes to the problems this team has, and if you look at the problems Golden State had last year, I feel like Kerr put his players in the best position to succeed. They just weren't good enough most nights to compete with teams. But you saw him take a G League roster basically and beat us in a game where we had both Dame and CJ. Like what's the excuse for that? And stuff like, and people say, well, that was the beginning of the year. We were still learning new things. They were missing their whole starting five. They had a whole new roster. All those guys were like new guys on their team. So like, it drives me crazy. They almost beat us. It took Dame scoring 61 points and winning in overtime for us to beat them later on in the season when they were still just as injured. And you see Popovich this year, so I heard that last year. Well, Popovich is such a good coach. Why can't he get this crap roster into the playoffs or whatever? Well, he almost did in the bubble. They were a game away from making the playoffs with arguably one of the worst rosters in the West. And then also on top of that, they didn't have Aldridge in the bubble either. And this year, they're one of the top defenses, and they have a super young team other than Aldridge and DeRozan, and those guys aren't the greatest defenders either. So like there's no excuses. It's all excuses and BS. And I'm sick of him getting a pass because Golden State had a bad year last year. Yeah, well they've also won 3 titles, so I think they deserve. And Popovich had a bad year last year, but he's won 5 titles, so I think they get a little bit of a pass for having a bad year or for when injuries happen and they're not all of a sudden coaching a championship team. But like Terry hasn't gotten them to any of those things. He
made a Western Conference Finals, so it's the same thing, right?
He's been here 9 years. He doesn't have any other kind of. He doesn't have any accomplishments. So, like, I just don't understand why we're giving him a pass for having this bad of a defense.
Here's why I hate this. It's like people are trying to excuse Stotts based off looking at a sheet of paper or standings tab and finding a team that's not, that has a poor record, that has a good coach, and saying, well, see, it can't be Stotts. It can't be Stotts because people say this coach is good and his team is bad. No, you gotta watch the damn team to understand the issues of the damn team. Like, it's that simple. And you have all these people just with the surface level stuff like, oh, well, Golden State sucked last year, so, it was, why are you guys criticizing Kerr? Why isn't Kerr just as bad as Stotts? It's like, that's all surface level stuff. You gotta watch the teams to know what the issues are, right? And we know what the issues are with this team because we watch the damn team. You just gotta actively watch. So when people try and compare, this team to a team they don't even watch as if it means something, is just kind of ridiculous to me. I don't like that. Shout out to Dread Pirate Roberts for becoming an all-star level member. Appreciate it. Welcome to the club. So I hate those types of arguments. Y'all can argue what happens on the floor, but so many arguments aren't based on stuff that happens on the floor. That's one of them. I'm tired of it. It just, like, I respect the difference in opinion, but make your arguments better than that. Like, we discuss things that happen on the floor for this team. Stop using, the record from this other team last year when they, had Steph out and Klay Thompson out the whole season pretty much. Like, bro, we had Dame last year. We had CJ last year, right? They were without Klay all year last year. They were without Steph almost all year last year. Their third best player isn't really worth anything unless he's playing next to those two guys, you know, because he's a glue guy that fits with those guys. With the G League roster, Draymond's pretty much useless.
And he's sat out most of the year too.
Yeah, and he was injured a lot too. So yeah, it's two different situations. You guys comparing apples to oranges to try and make a point that's just not strong whatsoever.
And it came out, I think it was sometime last year, that Mike Brown, who was an assistant coach on the Golden State Warriors, actually told Damian Lillard that if he wants to have the team success that Golden State has, he's going to have to learn to play differently on offense. And Dame basically said, well, we just don't do that here in Portland. Like we don't have the people to do that, and we don't can't do that. Okay,
which
so,
I disagree with. We have the personnel to play something similar, you know, but we're so drastically different when we shouldn't be.
Yep, we have Nurkic, who's a good passer. We have CJ, who can run an offense and be a point guard and play him off the ball. And it's not you don't have to have a point guard or a awesome facilitator to do that. You have to have properly designed sets and a commitment to making sure, and that's the same thing I just said a few minutes ago. If you got Damian Lillard better shots every once in a while, he would expend less energy on that end. And if he didn't have to break down a guy using his dribble every time, he would be fresher towards the end of the game.
Basically, if Steve Kerr was the head coach of this team, we'd have a better offense. And especially better offense in the playoffs, you know, because that's the big deal. You know, maybe in the regular season it's only, you know, slightly better, whatever, because we have a decent offense. But iso ball is the number one thing offensively that hurts you in the playoffs compared to the regular season. So, yeah, I mean, bro, Rocco makes the right pass and can be a part of a team that moves the ball really well. Rocco is a phenomenal cutter, you know, and a lob threat, right? You put those two guys with you know, with Steph and Clay, and say you put Nurkic over there too, our front court, they're playing the same exact way in terms of their movement, in terms of their player movement and their ball movement, right? Dame and CJ, I think, are a better passing backcourt than Steph and Clay. So that's the whole thing in regards to that. Yeah, it's. We have the personnel to play a more productive brand of offense. We just choose not to.
And also, okay, so we saw Stotts get asked a personal question. How do you teach that better or whatever? Like, if you don't know the answer to that question, bring in someone who does, please. There are so many good defensive assistants, guys who know the game. You can just go to some of the players like an Earl Watson's Instagram page and watch him break down defensive game plans of teams and show you like why this is a good idea, why this is a bad idea, stuff like that. Just bring someone in. I know you brought in a Jim Boylan for a couple weeks, but like that doesn't. It's not going to help to bring in a coach and just consult like that. You need to bring in someone on the staff and let them just do what they do on defense, give them control of it, and let them go to work on this defense. If you're not comfortable or you don't know how to fix it, bring in someone who does.
Yep. So anyway, I think that's going to wrap up tonight's stream. Thank you for tuning in. This was an absolute, as I said, shellacking. Hopefully it goes better tomorrow night because we're playing a team that we really should beat. It's the worst team in the NBA, but Bradley Beal might drop 60 on us, and Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, I wouldn't be surprised if they combined for about 100 points. We'll see how that goes. We're playing against a team that's worse defensively than us, you know, so it'll be interesting to compare and contrast our awful defenses tomorrow night. Hopefully the Blazers can get a win and stay, a game or two above 500, because that's the goal, right? Until Nurkic and CJ come back and magically fix all our issues. So anyway, yeah, thank you for tuning in. You can follow us on Twitter at ToryJonesYT for me, at HoopsJock for Eric, at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel. All those links are in the description box below. Also, make sure to subscribe to our streaming channel, Blazers Uprise Live. The link is also down in there. You can click on that after we sign off here. Other than that, shout out to my mods, Reese, Westbrook, and Trevin. Shout out to all my channel members and everybody who donated tonight. It means a lot. And that's a wrap for this show. So hopefully the Blazers can do better tomorrow night, and we'll catch you after that one. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.